Coming soon from SJS Direct, Spellbound, a darker shade of black. Suicide Squad was #1 at the box office this weekend. And what does that mean for the DC Comics fan? That means there's no hope, no change for the DC Comics fan. Because Suicide Squad was #1 at the box office this weekend, Warner Brothers, the owner of DC Comics and the producer of the Suicide Squad movie, now has no incentive to change its direction. After the Batman v Superman box office failure, the Warner Brothers executives were scrambling around thinking about changing their direction. But now that they see how their plans to implement a little bit of humor here or there in their Suicide Squad movie has led to a #1 opening, the best opening for August, now they have no incentive to change. So the DC Comics fan is going to have to deal with a world where there is no hope and no change for them. Why? Again, Warner Brothers has no economic incentive to change. Once they saw the Batman v Superman box office numbers and how bad they were, and then they saw that they did this little adjustment, now they feel that they can continue to produce incredibly terrible movies, and there will be a large audience there to go see these incredibly terrible movies. That means that the standard now is still at the bottom of the barrel, and Warner Brothers has no incentive to change it to make it rise to a higher level and the high standard than many of the Marvel Studio films like Captain America Civil War, Iron Man, and Captain America the First Avenger, and the Avengers met. That bar, pretty much for your DC Comics fan, is never going to go up to that high level. Since the DC Comics fan is willing to accept low standard, low grade, low seed superhero movies, that's all they're going to get, because you get what you pay for in the world. Because in the cinematic world, it's a business, and businesses only produce what the customer is going to pay for. And sadly, the DC Comics fan pretty much shows that they're willing to accept substandard as their standard. Whereas the Marvel Comics fan is willing to say, look, I'm not going to accept substandard. You're going to have to bring me the best. And they said that last year when Fox came out with that Fantastic Four movie, and they pretty much let it die. And they even said it with their X-Men Apocalypse, which didn't do as well as they expected. So they're saying that they have a standard for the type of superhero film that they want. Meanwhile, your DC Comics fan, because they are desperate, is pretty much saying that they are willing to accept any standard as long as it's got their favorite characters in it. Because I look at that Suicide Squad movie, and it's a sad movie. Basically, Warner Brothers gave you a Power Rangers episode in a film. Because when you look at the plot of the Suicide Squad movie, it is basically the episode of the Power Rangers where the Power Rangers took on this Hatchosaurus, and they had to cut this Cardiotron heart out of it. So I'm looking at that and saying, he's giving you Saban level quality, and Saban level is pretty low was even low for the 90s. And the DC Comics fan pretty much sits there and says, okay, this is my standard. I will accept Power Rangers level plots, Power Rangers level storytelling, and Power Rangers level characterizations, but I won't. But then I expect, high quality films that I can watch 10, 20 years later, like Superman the movie back in 1978. Well, I'm sorry, you're not going to get that as long as you continue to spend money the way you do. And the only way for a business to understand that the products that they get are not producing or up to par is for the customer to stop buying them. Unfortunately, many DC Comics fans are willing to settle for substandard as their standard. And because they are willing to settle for substandard, they are willing to take whatever garbage that they get, and that's going to really prevent many comic fans from this generation from getting a great adaptation of DC superheroes and seeing how great they are. Because when I look at that Suicide Squad movie again, I look at the clips of that film, and it's basically a choppy, jumbled mess with a Power Rangers plot pasted in and no sense of direction. And I'd like to think that a multi-billion-dollar company like Warner Brothers could do a whole lot better. If a guy like me, who pretty much publishes books out of his bedroom, can try to make product up to a high standard, then why can't a multi-billion-dollar corporation like Warner Brothers try to aspire to give you, the customer, something on a higher level? I look at that Suicide Squad movie, and it's just an embarrassment. And the sad part is that the customers and the comic fans at Warner Brothers have no hope and no change, and they are not giving Warner Brothers any sort of incentive to change by saying that they will not accept substandard as their standard. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.